My dad was a wedding photographer as well, so that's kind of how I got into it, really. I shot my first wedding 27 years ago when I was just 16 years old. He'd kind of got out of photography a little bit, and it was when one of his friends decided to get married and asked him, look, would you do it? And he was like, well, okay, but let's do it together. And I took a picture on that wedding that I'm still actually really proud of. We were driving behind the bridal car going from the church back to the reception, and the exhaust fell off. So Dad pulled over. I jumped out using an old completely manual Nikon F and just run over to them and got a shot of the groom and the driver tying the exhaust back on with the bride looking out the back window laughing. So that was kind of, I was doing reportage before it was cool.
And so you said your dad was a wedding photographer, and so you kind of grew up around it. Now your son is growing up around photography as well, which is really cool. Yes. So does it kind of feel like the whole story maybe come into a full circle?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's actually come along on a couple of weddings with me already where I've kind of shot. I've been there as the photographer, but they've been friends of ours. So he's come along as a guest, and I've just handed in one of my cameras. And one of the weddings we shot, I think he was only 7 at the time. The couple, they left the church on a motorbike and sidecar. So the groom was on the motorbike, bride was standing sort of in the sidecar bit. And they went up on 2 wheels, so the sidecar went up in the air. And my son was just in the right spot at the time, and he got the perfect shot of it. And that was the picture they chose to have blown up to go on their wall, which he likes to remind me of. He likes to say that he's a better photographer than me already. So many people, when they're asked how you get into photography, it's always about like the magic of seeing the picture appear in the chemicals. And I think for me, I never really had that. Photography's always been there. I ended up getting a job for a family portrait studio. I then went on after a few years to manage that studio. But then I got to, what was I now, coming up to 30, and I just thought, you know what, all I've done since I was 16 is photography, and I tried to get out of it. So I went to work for a bank, just sort of a high street bank, and I resigned on my birthday as a present to myself, because the final straw was I went in one day wearing a pair of zebra skin shoes, and I got called into the manager's office, and they were like, Martin, what makes you think it's acceptable to wear zebra skin shoes in a bank? And I just couldn't think of a reason why it wasn't acceptable. The customers were coming in saying it's great to see someone with some individuality here. But of course, a bank doesn't really want individuality. They just want you to toe the corporate line. And so, yeah, I resigned, and that was, 2009 on my birthday, and then went self-employed. The few times that I've got out of photography, that has made me go, yep, photography is the one for me. Let's get back into it again, because it is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's the places you get to go, the people you get to meet. Sometimes it really can kind of be that champagne lifestyle on a beer salary, as they call it, really. 4 weeks after I resigned from the bank, I then fell off my skateboard and broke my foot in half a dozen places. So I was actually in a cast. I think it was from July right through to the October of that year. So sort of, just going self-employed, no access to any money, which again, it taught me like a valuable lesson. You learn how to get by without much money. But that also changed my mindset. It made me just decide to take a different route with the photography rather than going back to doing family portraits. That was when I decided I wanted to do a more commercial type of work, and especially the music, combining the 2 passions of mine, sort of the photography and music, which I've just always loved. So that was how I kind of went into more commercial stuff. Of course, I thought, yep, let's do the music thing, which was brilliant. I was sort of shooting for a couple of magazines and stuff like that, as well as local bands that then took me on to festivals. I shot a few festivals. But when my son came along, and when he was getting a little bit older and was sort of up in the evenings a bit more, I decided I didn't really want to be out sort of 4 or 5 nights a week photographing bands. So that was when I sort of really put the effort into sort of your Monday to Friday 9 to 5 commercial work. And with the headshots. And I think it was around about 2015, I started doing sort of editorial style pictures for a electrical retail magazine. So it was a business to business magazine. But we were going out each month with me and the journalist to interview kind of like the heads of sort of quite large companies, sort of the heads of the UK division of sort of Sony, Panasonic, kitchen and bathroom brands and things like that as well. So he'd do the interview, and then I'd sort of just take a portrait that would end up being the cover shot of the magazine. And I found out I really like that, because some of these guys, even though they're wearing suits and they might look really boring, they've actually got really interesting stories, because if they've got to the level they're at, they're sort of so high up in their companies, they've got really interesting stories to tell. And I like that aspect of it, really. And then from that, I just moved into headshots as well, really, because the companies then call you back to photograph the rest of the staff. I've always kind of photographed quite a lot of varieties of stuff. And it's taking, say, one thing from one genre and then using it in another. So, for example, if I'm photographing a wedding, I'll pose the bridal party as if I was photographing a band. And then the same with some commercial work as well. I like to take the aspect of it just being a bit more quirky, a bit more alternative, and then photographing the guys in suits in a more alternative way as well. Sometimes there is a little switch in my brain that does kind of go, right, this is the headshot, it has to be straight on and everything has to be perfect. Or and then I'm photographing a band and this has to be a bit quirky. So sometimes I do have to force myself to think outside the box. It's like, no, just because this is on a corporate shoot today, you can still do something cool with them. Get the normal shots and then do something a bit quirky as well. But I think sort of the learning curve, as you mentioned, that's still there. It's every day, every shoot, just trying something new out and picking up new skills and new ideas. The learning curve's always there. I think the day I stop feeling anxious about a shoot is the day that it's like, okay, I'm done now. If I don't get those butterflies, those nerves of whatever the shoot is, because they just prove that you're still passionate about what you do. It's getting put in the challenging situations, or turning up to a shoot and realizing that you've left a bag at home, or you take out a light stand and it's broken. And it's what you do in those situations that really sort of sets you apart and just keeps you on your toes, really. In any area of life, sort of excitement and anxiety, they're just both sides of the same coin. It's the same feeling. It's how your mind interprets that feeling as to which way you go with it, I think. So I was based near London, and then 2 years ago, I moved 200 miles further north. So I'm now near Manchester, to give anyone an idea of reference. Now, I know that's probably not a great distance, and you guys would travel that for a decent breakfast. But over here, it's a long one. So, of course, I've been focusing on headshots for the last couple of years down in London, but I moved up here and I kind of just started throwing stuff at the wall again to see what would stick. It's like, okay, I can do interiors, I can do your pets, I can do a bit of products, bit of everything. And I was having limited success with it because I think I was a bit erratic in what I was really going for. And I met a business coach, a guy called sort of Jamie Stewart. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, headshots. I love doing the headshots and the people photography, the corporate people photography. And he said, well, just do that then. And it was like, oh, but that's not going to work. It's not working. And he was just like, look, just stick to your vision, stick to your goal and go with it. And I did sort of one of his training courses, and it was all about referral marketing and how to sort of network with people and going after your ideal client. And then I looked at my figures at the end of the year, and I'd earned more in the last 3 months of last year from referral marketing than I had in the previous 9 months. So he really sort of just channeled my vision, just working with him and doing his training course, which again, training courses, they can all be very similar. So it's not sort of reinventing the wheel, but yeah, just really clicked with him and still working with him, still speak to him sort of every week, at least once a week, if not more. And then sort of have a Zoom once a month with a few other like-minded people as well. And we just chat about stuff and how it's working for us. But yeah, that really changed since I'd moved. That was the best thing I've done. And the beginning of this year, it was my best January, February, and March since I started trading in 2009. It was focusing what I offer and what I do, which was going back to headshots and sort of solely, rather than going along to say networking meetings or meeting people. And it's like, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, I do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. It was like, I'm a headshot photographer. All right, that was really easy for people to remember. And I also set up, again, it was his idea because he sort of said, you can use my office. I've booked someone in next Tuesday for a headshot. See if you can fill see if you can fill up gaps around them. And it was like, oh, okay. So I did. And it was literally, I'd fully booked a complete day of headshots within 24 hours. I just posted it in a few of the sort of Facebook groups that I'm in for sort of business networking, and I booked it. And then I ended up doing one of those at least once a month, either in his office, or I sort of hired out other places to do them just around the local-ish area, traveling sort of say 15, 20 miles around. And yeah, just focusing on headshots. So yeah, that really worked for me. And it was also just about finding your ideal sort of referral network, really. There's some people that you instantly gel with on a business level as much as a personal level, and you find it really easy to refer work to each other. And they could be in completely different walks of life. That he taught me to open my mind, open my eyes a little bit to who I was having in that referral circle, really. At the moment, I'm kind of like, oh, we're in lockdown. I can't do any work. I'm really relaxed about stuff. And I just get a WhatsApp message at like 6:30 in the morning saying, when we spoke last week, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. And it was like, oh, I've got to, it's just having that accountability. I know I've got to make the phone call and say, oh, sorry, Jamie, I've not done it. But I'll do it by the end of the day. And then I go out and do it by the end of the day, yeah. Most photographers, we fall into this because photography is the passion first before it's the business. So we're all creatives, and we just like, oh, squirrel. We just so distracted. We just, yeah, very good at procrastination and just faffing and getting nothing done. So having that accountability does help me keep me on the straight and narrow, definitely, yes. I think the first one is do a little bit of research if you can, if you've got the opportunity. I know if you're kind of booked for a corporate shoot and you've just got all the office bods coming through as a lineup, as it were, you haven't got time to research everyone. If you're booked for sort of a one-on-one and it might be sort of a more prominent person in the company, then there's usually some stuff on Google about them. So that can be really helpful. Just finding those little bits of information. When you don't want to go scary and sort of stand there and go, I know that you've got 3 children and Amy, James and Louise, because that would just really freak them out. But just finding out what they're into, if they've done an interview or something and you can find out that they're into golf or something like that, then you've got that little talking point. But on the day of the session, I kind of call it provoking a reaction from someone. You're not necessarily wanting them to smile, but you definitely want to get a reaction from them. But a good way, I think, to make people relax is to kind of forget that you're having your picture taken. So it's distraction techniques. And a couple of things I always use, I mean, it's on the back of this mug, is I ask people, what's your favorite dinosaur? Because they're nervous. They're like, I'm having my picture taken. I've got to stand this way. I've got to lean forward, and they're in a really uncomfortable position. And you go, what's your favorite dinosaur? And it's just like, what? They're thrown for a moment. So they're out of their comfort zone. And most people say T-Rex, which is a bit boring. Occasionally you get a Stegosaurus, or my personal favorite, a Triceratops. Once you've done that, generally you just fall into a conversation with someone, and it's kind of little bits there, because it's kind of like, okay, if I know they've got the Land Before Time reference, I know they're going to be into 80s movies, so it's another little connection. So it's kind of laying out a trail of breadcrumbs or dots and then joining up the dots or something. Another thing I always like to ask is, if a movie was to be made about your life, who would you have playing you?
You asking me? I'll see.
Yeah, I'm asking you. Yeah, we're flipping it around. I'm interviewing you now.
I love George Clooney. I love his just calm, cool demeanor. That's all. He's always been one of my favorites.
Do you know what? He comes out quite a lot. I often wonder whether it's because of people like the suit where he had the bat nipples. I don't know.
Might be. What's your answer to that one?
Mine, and I have thought about this because people throw it back to me. I'd go for Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage is a good one.
In just one of his, when he's kind of borderline crazy roles, which is most of Nicolas Cage's films. But yeah, I think Nicolas Cage, if you're out there and you ever want to make a movie about me and my life, Nicolas Cage playing me would be a good one. I mean, one of the things that I think every photographer, no matter what genre you shoot, you get asked, can you photograph my baby? Can you do family portraits? And even though that's my background, and I was kind of training other photographers how to do family portraits when I was sort of running a studio, it's not my passion anymore. So that's work that I always pass on to other photographers, who that is what they do. I mean, talking a lot about referrals, spinning it back to that, other photographers are probably one of my greatest sources of income. And I think there's two schools of thoughts. There's photographers who are very much like, it's mine, I'm not sharing anything. Where there's other photographers, it's just where we meet up, we chat all the time, and we're quite happy to share work amongst each other. I think if I'm booked for a job or it's not a job that is right for me, I'd sooner refer that on to another photographer who I know will do a great job. If someone refers work to me, then I'm going to go out of my way to refer work back to them as well, and try and help them out. So there's a lot of sort of that mindset to it. And of course, if someone does land me a large client, lots of work, then I'd sooner just give them a token gift, sort of out of the blue, rather than if you book me this, I will give you this. Now, I'm happy to do that. Where I lived before, I worked for a couple of PR agencies, and I knew that they would take a cut from it, which is fine because they're putting in consistently a lot of the groundwork. And it was, for me, it was just, okay, that's done. The brief's there. I just turn up, clicky click, go home. So for that type of thing, yeah, I'm more than happy to pay like a commission. But no, for this type of referral stuff, it's really kind of what goes around comes around. You're looking out for other businesses, and you're listening out for their type of ideal client as much as they're listening out for my ideal type of client. I found what I call my headshot days were really working for me. So that was me booking a location. I don't have a studio. It was on the cards. I really kind of want to get one, but of course I'm going to wait until COVID kind of goes away. The last thing I want to do is pay out for a studio and then it'd be sitting there and I can't use it. So it's either kind of borrowing offices or rooming an office of people that I know, and then maybe doing a few headshots for their team in exchange for that, or hiring out a room in a shared office, because then that can open up, if you're getting on with the people who own the center, that can open up a whole sort of whole load of clients to you, because you can maybe do mailers to everyone in the building and say, look, so-and-so Martin Hobby is here on this day, he's doing headshots, it's the cheapest way to kind of get them done, and then that can kind of help fill the diary as well. But before that, most of it was on an individual basis, or going out to companies on location and photographing their team, which I still do, well, still did a lot of as well, and hopefully we'll go back to doing that.